Welcome to the Spider-Man Cartoon Maker, where your imagination is the real superhero.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Classic Gaming Brothers. I'm Zach.
And I'm Seth.
And we are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right.
That's right. We're brothers. We're classic.
Oh no.
I thought you were I said we're brothers and you went, oh, and I was like, uh-oh, is this going to be the dramatic turn?
Dun, dun, dun.
Actually, we've never been brothers.
Wouldn't that be sad for our noble listeners?
That'd be sad for me. You're a good brother. I like hanging out with you.
I mean, you're all right. No, I was just looking at since I updated Audacity, this episode might be really loud. It's fine. It's just zoomed in on the sound, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, so we do have some notes from our producer. He wanted to talk about GamesCon because I think he thought we were a news podcast for a while.
I think he forgets that we do a lot of these episodes in advance, so by the time this episode comes out, GamesCon is a forgotten memory.
Yeah. I just think he also just often forgets. So the news from our producer is he wanted for us to start a new segment called The News You Can Use, which I think people have already used. But he wanted to talk about, within the News That You Can Use segment, he wanted to talk about GamesCon and specifically the Dark Forces remaster that got announced.
Yeah.
Which is pretty exciting.
I mean, it looks exciting. So for those who missed Gamescom, Night Dive is doing a remaster of Dark Forces, and it looks like they are building it in the Kex engine, which is the engine that they have used for a lot of their games that are Doom-like, I guess I would say. So like, for example, Doom 64 and Power Slave Exhumed and Blood. And they also, like the most recent updates to Quake 2 and Quake were also in the Kex engine. So the Kex engine is kind of like their big first-person shooter cross-platform framework, and that's what they're going to be using for Star Wars Dark Forces. And I think that's great. There's a lot of lighting upgrades you can do with it. They're going to be updating all of the cutscenes to have kind of revised textures to make them look a little less blocky, which in all fairness, I like the pixel look of those cutscenes, but it'd be cool to kind of see the new style they're going for, which is like this hand-drawn style. And who knows, they might have a way you can toggle it to the old style if you prefer. Night Dive is usually pretty good about that sort of thing, of like updating places where they need to be, but keeping the game pretty much the way it should have been. They're really good at kind of preserving games in that regard. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a pretty cool thing to play. And yeah, I love Dark Forces. It'll be nice to play it in a way that doesn't like crash every now and then, because the current version just runs in DOSBox.
I was playing through the original Dark Forces, and I wonder if they're going to keep the play style where you like choose your mission, you like finish your mission and you go on to the next mission, and you can choose to do different missions at a time.
They probably will,
because I think that's kind of cool. And then we finally get Kyle Katarn in full on HD graphics. I'm very excited about seeing our boy Kyle Katarn.
I love Kyle Katarn.
I'm a fan of Kyle Katarn too. I feel like if Star Wars was real and I was in the Star Wars world, I would be Kyle Katarn.
Nice. I thought you were going to say you'd be friends with Kyle Katarn.
No, I just be him.
Nice.
I feel like Kyle Katarn and I are kindred spirits. We both are pretty much mercenaries when it comes to doing things for money.
You have a moral code.
We do have a moral code where we don't do horrible things for money. And if I was to become a Jedi in the Star Wars world, it'd probably be the way that Kyle did, and that was get submerged in a bunch of goo instead of actually being a Jedi.
Kyle took the easy way out.
It's just like, bam, there we go. That's me in a nutshell. You think I'd actually go to the Jedi Academy? No. I'd be like Kyle Katarn. All of a sudden, super speed. You could be like Dash Rendar.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like I'd be like Rosh, who's that really annoying guy at Jedi Academy, but I'm glad you said him like Dash Rendar. I feel
there
better
you go.
about that.
You work for the government. You drive a shitty car.
Yeah, and I like wearing fun jackets.
Yeah, exactly. And you like wear fun jackets.
I like how Dash Rendar is always ready to go on a boat because he always wears his life jacket.
Just like you. You're not even going out on the water.
Meanwhile, Kyle Katarn, he's ready if he gets shot in one shoulder because he has that pauldron on only one shoulder.
And like a starched collar in his action figure. Anyway, Zach.
Yes, Seth.
What have you recently been playing?
Seth, recently I set up ExoWin on my computer, largely thanks to the fact that you advised me to do so. I did not download all of the games that were available for ExoWin because that is 300 gigs of data that I didn't want to lose. So I went through the list of what's currently compatible with ExoWin, and I downloaded the ones that I thought looked fun. And one of those games that I downloaded is a game that I remember playing a demo of when I was a child. And that game is Mr. Potato Head Saves Veggie Valley. Originally released in 1995 by Duck Soup Productions and Turning Point Software, in Mr. Potato Head Saves Veggie Valley, you play as Mr. Potato Head.
Oh.
And you must figure out how to stop the drought in your town of Veggie Valley. And you do so by teaming up with your daughter, whose name is Sweet Potato.
Wait, I got to think about this for a little while. You're playing a potato.
Yes.
And your objective is to stop a drought.
Yes.
Which is the weather.
To stop the drought, you have to go to a fun fair, because that's where the clouds are.
Do you have to convince the clouds to be sad so that they rain?
I'm pretty sure you have to convince the clouds to come to Veggie Valley.
Oh, I thought you just had to go to a fun fair and pick on clouds so that they cry tears of
maybe
sadness.
That too. I didn't get that far in the game, which is saying something, because these are usually pretty easy games. But in any case, I remembered this game from a CD-ROM I had distributed by Play School, which was a subsidiary of Hasbro. And I remember for a while I had a disc of other Play School games, and on this disc was a demo for Mr. Potato Head Saves Veggie Valley, which only got to a certain point, and then you had to stop playing. So I thought I would try to jump into that full-fledged experience. And I think if I had this full game as a kid, I would have really enjoyed it, because this game is very much in the style of like humongous adventure games. So like Putt Putt, Pajama Sam, Freddy Fish. I would say it's more on the level of like Putt Putt and Fatty Bear, where it's a pretty easy peasy, whereas like Pajama Sam and Freddy Fish get a little bit more complex, and Spy Fox is a little more complex.
So you remember how there was a lot of Putt Putt games?
Yes, I do.
And there's a decent number of Freddy Fish games.
Yes.
There are only like 2 Fatty Bear games, and one of those Fatty Bear games, it's a team up with Putt Putt.
Yeah, one of the Fatty Bear games is just a pack of mini games.
He gets the raw end of the deal.
He
when
really
it comes
does.
to protagonists of the humongous world. Spy Fox, at least, I think, has two or 3 games.
Yeah, and Pajama Sam has, I think, 4 or 5, because there was one that came out very late in the game that we never played.
Yet.
But anyway, Mr. Potato Head Saves Veggie Valley is kind of similar to those games in the sense that you have to bring in a thing to a place, and that solves the objective. So, like, for example, one of the first puzzles is there are caterpillars on the road. So you pick up some leaves, and you give them to the caterpillars, and they leave. That's how you can pass by. And that's very much like a putt-putt thing.
Well, it's a very much an adventure game thing.
Yeah, that too. But you can literally click on everything, and it will do something. That's like a humongous, and Broderbund did that too. It was very much for, like, kid games did that at the time.
Yeah. Like things like Pinwheel Spin.
Yeah,
like
exactly. Like everything had something to say or do. However, one unique puzzle element that is unique to this game is the fact that you can customize Mr. Potato Head for certain situations. And this is how you solve certain puzzles. So for example, one of the second puzzles you encounter is a bridge that is being blocked by an onion who is... Mr. Potato Head just calls him a troll. I don't know if he was referring to him in like the internet sense. It was 95, so probably not. But he's like, troll. And the guy's like, definitely.
Was it a bridge?
It was a bridge. He's under the bridge.
So he was definitely a troll, bridge troll.
But he was definitely an onion.
Well, you could be a bridge troll and an onion.
I guess so. But the onion troll said to me, I only let royalty across the bridge. So I went into the Mr. Potato Head customization tool, and I gave Mr. Potato Head a crown and a robe.
Ooh.
And then the onion let me cross the bridge, because
Ooh.
now I was royalty. And then once you cross the bridge, Mr. Potato Head goes back to normal, so I guess he's hoping the onion doesn't look.
Maybe the onion's like, you're over the bridge. Who cares? They don't pay me that much.
That's pretty much the gist of the game. It's certainly a game I would have liked as a kid. Certainly a game I probably won't play it again.
Do you know what that dressing up as royalty reminds me of? That time in Gabriel Knight 3 where you need to put on a mustache that is composed of maple syrup packet, tape, and a cat hair.
Man, there's so many things that remind us of that.
That is my favorite puzzle in life.
That's one of those puzzles that has a whole Wikipedia page just dedicated to that puzzle.
Right. Yeah, well, if there's one thing that I want to do in my life is dress Tim Curry up with a piece of tape with cat hair stuck to it from maple syrup.
In any case, Seth, what have you been recently playing?
Recently, I have also been using the ExoWin 3X as well. I've been playing specifically a Super Solvers game called Outnumbered with the O and the N capitalized with an exclamation point. It's an educational game, as evident by it being done by Super Solvers and being called Outnumbered, because within those 3 lines, there are at least 2 references to math. It's an educational game published by the Learning Company, which I believe is vaguely related to what we're talking about today. That was released in 1990 and was remastered in 1995, and we owned a copy of Outnumbered, and I definitely also played it at school. It's a very good math game. You play as this creepy child who wears a blue trench coat, Hawaiian shorts, baseball cap, and some sunglasses. You kind of look like a flasher, but you're wearing shorts, so it's okay. And you can move left and right. You could do cool jumps, so like spinny jumps, and you can blast people with your remote control that shoots out like teleporting sound waves. I'm not exactly sure what it shoots. However, I actually was like, man, I really dig all the music in this game. Fun fact, it's all classical music. The intro is actually Bach's Prelude in C minor BWV 999. So if you're ever like rocking out to the intro music to Outnumbered like I was, you can thank Bach. Also, it was probably cheap for them to get all the classical music and layer it in. It's all public domain, so they're like, we need some lit music for the background. I have an idea. Now, in the game, if you've never played Outnumbered, you have to find the Master of Mischief, who is a man who is hiding in a room. And he's going to accomplish something by midnight, and it's 9 o'clock when you show up.
Because you've taken your time.
Yeah. The security guard's passed out in the chair already, and you've got like 4 hours to find this guy in a room, in a building that has 6 rooms. So one of these rooms has him. They all have locks on them, and you have to find the code, and you find the code by blasting tellies, as the code is hidden in the tellies' bellies. Which I only played this game to say that pun. Once you blast the telly, you have to solve math problems which show up in their bellies, which, because they're television monsters, are the screen of the television. You solve math problems, and then they give you 1 code. You blast 4 tellies, you get 4 codes, and then you use that code to figure out what room is locked by going to each of the rooms and solving word puzzles, but they're math word puzzles, so they're math puzzles with words. And I think those are word problems, is what they're called in real life. So you solve these word problems, and everything's math related, so it's not like a word problem with words. It's all math related. So it's great. Some of the word problems that I was solving were problems that I would encounter in work.
You know, something about Outnumbered that I remembered is I definitely played that game when I was a bit too young, because I remember at one point launching the game and playing it and encountering a word problem. And for a brief second, I remember thinking to myself, I can't read.
I can only do the number parts. They do include a calculator, though, which is fun for doing word problems.
I remember that. That is nice. Yeah.
Which are arguably, I mean, I guess you always will have a calculator in life, unlike what teachers told us in 3rd grade.
Yeah, that bothered me so much. Teachers would be like, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket all the time. Joke's on you.
Yeah, in fact, we do. In fact, everybody does, and it's not even weird.
Yeah.
So you have energy, clock's counting down. You got to find the Master of Mischief, which he's like a very villainous guy with like, he's like bald. He's got like this tall science hair, bald in the middle, and then it's got like the big science hair sticking out, and he wears a lab coat. But he is the size of a child. Like, he is a small man, because he's the size of the character that you're playing, who is a child. I don't know what mischief he's going to do, but you stop him. And when you stop him, you blast him with your remote control, and he teleports off, I assume, to hell. This is where you send him, because that's, in my canon, the kid from Outnumbered has a remote control that blasts people to hell. So you blast Master of Mischief to hell, and you get your solve. And the way the game works is there is a 500,000 point system, and you can earn so many points every time you go through the game. The more points you earn, the more difficult it gets. So in the beginning, it gives you like hints, and then after you become a junior level by getting 5,000 points, you no longer get hints. And then you make your way up towards being a super sleuth, which is like 500,000 points. Yeah, very nostalgic game for me. Makes me feel smart because I did only addition math in this game, and I could do addition pretty well. But I didn't get to the later levels where there might be division, and not a big fan of that. Anyway, but yeah, so that's what I've been playing. Super Solvers Outnumbered.
Well, today we are keeping in the theme of edutainment. A while ago, Seth was playing Spider-Man Cartoon Maker, and it gave us the idea to talk about Knowledge Adventure, the company that created Spider-Man Cartoon Maker.
Yeah, in fact, spoiler alert, next Sunday's episode is going to be about a more popular topic. But I presented 2 topics to Zach, and I said, we can talk about this topic, or we can talk about Knowledge Adventure. And he said, so we can talk about a really popular thing, or we can talk about something that nobody knows about. And I said, yeah, let's go with that one.
Now, before we get into the history of Knowledge Adventure as a company, Seth, do you want to talk about any memories you have of Knowledge Adventure games?
They did a butt ton.
They sure did. That when I was going through it, I was like, holy moly, they made so many games.
We're going to talk about Spider-Man Cartoon Maker. And I think that's where we should really maybe even title this as Spider-Man Cartoon Maker, because if there's going to be any nostalgia out there, it's going to be for that game, because that game is glorious. I definitely have a lot of memories of Spider-Man Cartoon Maker. The sound effects haunt my mind, specifically like the Aunt May and the nanny music, I guess, as she walks across. Everyone had their own music line.
Or just a weird sound effect. Dr. Octopus was like... it was a crunchy sound.
Because of his legs that were walking.
But it was a very distinct sound.
Yeah, for sure. And Spider-Man had the Spider-Man, the... It's all fun stuff. It was a fun game. I remember we made some cartoons. Some of them were Spider-Man themed, and some of them were inappropriate.
That sounds like us.
I'm going to say a majority of them were probably inappropriate. I feel like because you could save your cartoons on multiple pages, I feel like we saved inappropriate cartoons on separate pages that were not immediately available, so that people didn't stumble on inappropriate cartoons.
Yeah, we definitely hid them just in case our father decided to play Spider-Man Cartoon Maker on a rainy day, which, to be fair, was not unheard of.
Yeah, no. Mind you, this is the 90s, so this is peak video gaming at the time.
But it wasn't like he was going to boot up Wolfenstein while we were home, so what else is going to play?
Plays Mr. Spider-Man Cartoon Maker. Your options are to either get lost in a puzzle designed by mad people or play Myst. I really enjoyed, and I think we talk about this later, but I really enjoyed the actual cartoons that came with the Spider-Man Cartoon Maker.
Yeah.
I remember watching those and being like, wow, you could do so much with these cartoon makers. I also remembered, funny enough, not having a microphone.
Yeah.
Because I always remembered there was voiceover in the cartoons that came with the game, and I was like, man, I always want to do voiceover, but I couldn't do voiceover because we didn't have a microphone for the computer. And I think it's funny now that I don't know, I've probably had 4 or 5 computers since that original computer, and I've had like a microphone with all of the other computers because of headsets and stuff like that and requiring to talk online. So I was like, wow, if I just booted up Spider-Man Cartoon Maker recently, which I did, I think it was my recently played for the last episode, I could have voiced over some tracks and made my own Spider-Man cartoon. I also learned that you could save off your movies and send them to people so that people who don't have Spider-Man Cartoon Maker could watch your Spider-Man movie, because I'm sure that's what many uncles and grandmas and grandmothers and extended family wanted from their relation was a scary Spider-Man cartoon.
Yeah,
maker
right.
cartoon.
Yeah. You can actually find like people on YouTube who have uploaded their Spider-Man Cartoon Maker cartoons in like high quality rips. But my favorite thing is the people who uploaded old VHS tapes of Spider-Man Cartoon Maker episodes. It's very good. I know, I mean, speaking of sound effects, one of my favorite sound effects, or it's one that, it's not really my favorite, but it's one that I've heard in other places, is the sound of the police officer. When you drag the police officer across the screen, there's like a radio chatter.
11825, code 6, 105 North Avenue 52.
And I was watching something else, and I remember hearing that radio chatter sound, the exact sound. And then I heard it again somewhere else, and I was like, this is definitely a stock sound effect. And I found that it is a stock sound effect called Liberty 285, code 6, 105 North Avenue 52.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's apparently just some random stock sound effect, but on the YouTube channel of someone uploaded that sound effect, everyone is like, I remember this from Spider-Man Cartoon Maker. Anyway, to get into the history of Knowledge Adventure. Knowledge Adventure as a company was founded in 1991 in Torrance, California by Bill Gross. The company was founded as an edutainment company, which we've talked about edutainment before. I think we did a whole episode on it. Edutainment is kind of the combination of educational and entertainment. It's a portmanteau, if you would.
Yeah, it's like us. We are the embodiment of edutainment.
That's true. And in their early days, they primarily worked on DOS projects. Some of their earliest games were Isaac Asimov's Science Adventure, Dinosaur Adventure, and another game, I think it was just called like Space Adventure. So they really liked putting like subject adventure. They did make a pretty big name for themselves at one point when they developed for DOS and Windows, Mario is Missing and Mario's Time Machine, which were also on the Super Nintendo and the NES, though those were made by different people. Mario's Missing, while sounding like a very potentially exciting game, is in fact a game where you play as Luigi and you learn about geography. In the DOS version, Luigi is kind of drawn cartoony, so he doesn't look like the sprite of Luigi that like we're familiar with, like just Green Mario. They made him look kind of a bit more like, I guess Luigi would look. He's taller, he's a little thinner, he's got a little bit more cartoony proportions, but that particular sprite was redrawn as a cartoon and someone turned it into a meme on the internet in the early 2000s. And that meme was called Ouija, and people would just put him in awkward situations, sometimes offensive situations, but I mean, that was the internet. He spawned from 4chan, he went to Reddit. Anyway, in the game, you travel around various parts of the world and you're trying to figure out why Mario is in fact missing.
Do you think Carmen Sandiego stole him?
It was Bowser, but Carmen Sandiego probably helped. The other game, Mario's Time Machine, is about finding lost objects and going to different parts of history to return those. So it's also an educational game because you're doing history stuff.
Do you have the lost objects?
No, you find them in weird places.
And you return them to their proper places.
Yeah, so like Isaac Asimov's apple is in Rome for some reason.
So like an innocuous thing.
Yeah, it's nothing huge.
It's not like the dagger that stabbed Caesar is all of a sudden
no,
just like in, I don't know, Leonardo's hand or something.
No, it's not like paradoxical stuff. I think like the Mona Lisa is misplaced. In August of 1995, Knowledge Adventure acquired Fanfare Studios, who previously put out two edutainment titles of their own, Jumpstart Kindergarten and Jumpstart First Grade. The Jumpstart series was fairly popular, as they covered a wide variety of subjects like writing, math, phonics, and other topics that would be helpful for children entering early schooling, and this would become Knowledge Adventure's bread and butter. They made so many Jumpstart games.
There is a Jumpstart for like every grade. I'm surprised that there's not like a Jumpstart College, basic finances.
That would have helped me so much if there was a Jumpstart College.
But it goes up to, I think, 3rd or 4th grade for Jumpstarts. And they're different subjects too. So you have like 1st grade writing, 2nd grade writing, and it's just like, wow, they really just took school school, broke it up by subjects, and then milked them. Now, 1995 was also the year that John Semper Jr., the story editor for the Spider-Man animated series that was on television at the time, developed Spider-Man Cartoon Maker for Knowledge Adventure. And this game was Zach and I's favorite game growing up. Mostly because, unlike Dragon Sphere, we could beat Spider-Man Cartoon Maker because it didn't crash randomly.
Right, and also it didn't have an ending.
It's true, it didn't have an ending, so you can play it forever, but it never crashed. Now, Spider-Man Cartoon Maker is part of the Cartoon Maker series of games, which also included the Adventures of Batman and Robin Cartoon Maker, which I believe is before Spider-Man Cartoon Maker.
They came out like the same year, but I think Adventures of Batman and Robin came out earlier in the year.
So then those Adventures of Batman and Robin Cartoon Maker, Spider-Man Cartoon Maker, and later X-Men Cartoon Maker, which when I was reading through the notes, I thought that said XCOM Cartoon Maker, and
oh my god, that would have been the best game ever.
That would have been amazing. It would have come out at the right time too.
Oh
like,
man, imagine dragging your little XCOM guy across the screen and you have to dissect aliens.
Oh, it would be perfect. But anyway, it was X-Men Cartoon Maker, which you could also combine Spider-Man Cartoon Maker with X-Men Cartoon Maker, making a Marvel combined game. However, I don't believe you could combine Batman's and Robin with Spider-Man.
No, you couldn't. But when you installed X-Men Cartoon Maker, it would say, it looks like you already have a copy of Spider-Man Cartoon Maker installed. Would you like us to install it to that folder? And if you said yes, then what would happen is next time you launch, I think you would have to launch Spider-Man Cartoon Maker, but all of the assets from X-Men Cartoon Maker would be in Spider-Man Cartoon Maker. So you could have like Wolverine and Spider-Man. And also the X-Men Cartoon Maker like has their own stories and stuff like that. It was great. And then our copy of X-Men Cartoon Maker is split in half. CD-ROM, like literally cracked in half.
I remember Spider-Man Cartoon Maker was a half-sies, where half of it was Spider-Man Cartoon Maker, and the other was like a tree game, which may have been also done by Knowledge Adventure.
My first encyclopedia was the one that was bundled on the CD-ROM.
My first encyclopedia.
My first encyclopedia is the tree game, but there was another game in the files, and it was like Spider-Man Cartoon Maker, but it had like...
Oh, the magic one.
Yeah! And I was trying to hunt that game down. I don't know what it was called.
I know what game you're talking about. I'll figure it out. I'm very good at finding obscure software. It's my secret talent. Now, what's also, I just want to state a fact. The cartoons that were coming out looked like the cartoons that you were making in Spider-Man Cartoon
Which was
Maker.
amazing.
Today, the cartoons look different. So the cartoons that you would make in Spider-Man Cartoon Maker do not necessarily look like the cartoons that come out today. These cartoons were like what we would like to call lazily drawn Blastum cartoons, where they made a bunch of cartoons to sell toys. Now, your job playing Spider-Man Cartoon as the player would be to create scenes using animated stickers. You could drag stickers across the screen, often accompanied by music or sound effects. And from here, you could add dialogue using a microphone or text boxes. And you could have stickers at varying levels of foreground to background. So you could have a big sticker that was the background, and then you could drag creatures across it in the foreground, or you can make objects in the foreground. You could then save what you were doing as a scene, and then you can start a new scene, and you could string together multiple scenes to create a whole scenario. And many of the storylines that we created had no sense. Mostly because, once again, we had no microphone, so we couldn't voice over what we were talking about. So we had to use text bubbles, which generally took up the entire screen if you were going to read anything. And they were more like animated comics is really what they were. One of the big components in cartoons is voice. And without having a microphone, we really had Spider-Man Comic Maker that was animated. What's cool is the entire game is narrated by Christopher Daniel Barnes, who is the voice of Spider-Man in the 1990s cartoon series. Along with the scenes you could make, there were also some pre-made storylines, including the Sinister Six storyline and the retelling of Spider-Man's origins. I feel like that one, he had like the spider drop down and the spider got really big or something.
Yeah, and then there's also like another one where it shows his like first time having spider sense, and it just keeps doing concentric circles like around his head.
These scenes, or these little movies that were included, were fun and a way to show players what type of stories that you could tell. The X-Men Cartoon Maker, which could be installed on top of the Spider-Man Cartoon Maker, was more of the same, but with characters and items from the X-Men animated series of the time, which was the best series of the time.
Yeah, and that they're doing a new season of.
In 1996, Knowledge Adventure was acquired by CUC International, which was a media conglomerate. In 1997, the company was merged with Davidson and Associates, which was later merged with Hospitality Franchise Systems to create Sendint. Sendint software also included Blizzard Entertainment, Sierra, and Griffin Software. The next year, CUC was sold to the French media company Havas, which then merged with the water utility company Vivendi, which we've talked about Vivendi picking up these various different companies before.
Yeah. I think when we were talking about Sierra.
Yeah. So at one point in time, the company that made Spider-Man Cartoon Maker was a co-company with Blizzard. Now, while under Havas, Knowledge Adventure continued to make kid-friendly games and edutainment software, such as more games in the Jumpstart series, but also games based on the Fisher-Price properties Curious George, Barbie, and American Idol.
In 2004, Vivendi would sell Knowledge Adventure to investors who were looking to take a more active management strategy and develop new edutainment. In 2012, Knowledge Adventure would officially rebrand themselves as Jumpstart Games. And in 2014, Jumpstart bought Neopets from Viacom. That's a massive buy. Neopets is a major property. We'll talk about Neopets someday because it has a wild history. Throughout 2014 and 2015, Jumpstart re-released older Knowledge Adventure titles via a website called zoom-platform.com. I don't know if that's still a website, so I advise you not visiting it. These games included 3D Body Adventure, 3D Dinosaur Adventure, Space Adventure, and Undersea Adventure. The release was a joint venture with Jordan Freeman Group, and the releases were exclusively DRM-free digital downloads. They would also add Bug Adventure later into this mix, largely due to the success that they saw from the initial batch, with one description of the release being described as quote-unquote an incredible reaction. In 2017, Jumpstart was acquired by NetDragon Websoft, a Chinese online game development studio. NetDragon's previous ventures have been primarily in education, such as a partnership they had with the University of North Texas to launch a digital research center. In June of 2023, after many years of ups and downs, Jumpstart Games announced that they were closing their doors and ending support for all games excluding Neopets. On June 30th, 2023, they officially ended support for their non-Neopets games, and their website shut down on July 1st of 2023. Neopets was transferred to Fluffy Dog Studios, who had been previously called Jumpstart Vancouver, and that is the life of Jumpstart. They sadly, just shuttered their doors literally a few months ago, and apparently no one knows why. On the official Wikipedia for Jumpstart, it said closed for unknown reasons. I assume financial might be the reason, but they had the Neopets license still. I don't know, and that actually is still making money, so I have no idea what was going on with them.
I did do some fast research and found that other Cartoon Maker game that you were thinking about. It's called Magic Theater.
Oh yeah, this is it.
It's by Instinct Game.
Oh, so it's not a Knowledge Adventure.
They use the same game engine, I guess.
Instinct must have been connected to Knowledge Adventure because I'm pretty sure that's the Knowledge Adventure logo next to Instinct's core.
That's fun.
Yeah. They might have been like a development house that Knowledge Adventure probably outsourced stuff to them.
Now, as Jumpstart was bounced around by a few different companies, it's hard to get an exact figure on the numbers and how their games sold. However, according to Rocket Reach, a job recruiter site, it is indicated that Jumpstart had at one point $26 million in revenue and $13 million in funding. Owler reported at latest 2018 the estimated revenue was between $100,000 and $5 million. Crunchbase stated that their total funding at some point was around $31.9 million, and they had 4 investors, with Random House Ventures, Azure Capital Partners being 2 major investors during the funding phases. The app tracking website Sensor Tower also provided a breakdown of some of the apps that Jumpstart sold, with 39 apps being marked as making under $5,000 in the last month. Though we weren't able to find verification of this information and what this would have looked like for an entire year, so they either were very successful or they weren't. And being that they're no longer in business, we can probably say the latter.
Now, in terms of their legacy, Jumpstart and Knowledge Adventure, they weren't really a groundbreaking company, to be honest. The titles they have might be memorable, but they were certainly not anything new. Everyone who made edutainment games basically made the same type of edutainment game. It was either like a math game or a word problem solving game. But I think what they do have, at least in my opinion, and I think in Seth's opinion, was the ability to create a lasting memory due to the just fun of their games. Simply Googling titles by Knowledge Adventure will bring you to random forum posts of people trying to find ways to still play these games today just because they want to reminisce about them. A YouTube video released by Peter Netter a few weeks ago that dives into Jumpstart series of games has nearly 200,000 views. A 3-hour walkthrough of Jumpstart Adventure's 3rd grade Mystery Mountain has nearly 400,000 views. Spider-Man Cartoon Maker shorts are still uploaded to YouTube. Many of them have thousands to tens of thousands of views apiece. In fact, the video I found, that audio sample of the police officer, it had not only thousands of views, but also, as mentioned, majority of the comments were people reminiscing about Spider-Man Cartoon Maker. So I think Knowledge Adventure's legacy wasn't in the fact that they redefined anything in the gaming genre. It's just that their games were fun and that their games were memorable because of them being fun.
And there was another thing that we haven't really mentioned. They were packed in with most of the computers. We had a Packard Bell 486 growing up, and specifically the edition that we had a suite of software. And that suite of software for a child ran from super exciting to extremely boring. I recall the original Journeyman came with it. There was the Spider-Man Cartoon Maker / My First Encyclopedia. There was Toonland. There was the Silent Steel demo and Carta 95. And there was Better Home and Gardens. There was some like really fun CDs and then some really just junk. I think we played through them all though. Guinness World Records 95 I think was there. But so if you had like, let's say only the pack-in CDs for your computer, and there were 3 games and one was a demo that ended halfway through, and then another one was a weird time traveling game, and the other was Spider-Man Cartoon Maker, guess what game you're going to be playing a lot if you are of a certain age? Journeyman.
Well, that will do it for Knowledge Adventure.
Knowledge Adventure / Spider-Man Cartoon Maker.
Let's get into our retro rewind. So, Seth had me play Vagrant Story. It was developed by Squaresoft in 2000 for the PS1. You play as a member of an organization called the Valendia Knights of the Peace and are tasked with tracking down a cult leader named Cindy Lostero. Sydney leads a cult in the city of Le Monde, which is in the country of Valendia, currently in the midst of a civil war. The game is an action role-playing game with combat taking place using a system that I would call very similar to VATS. Basically time stops and you pick a part of the enemy you want to hit, and then you hit them and it does damage or misses. So it's pretty much exactly like VATS. VATS being from the Fallout franchise. The game is actually very neat, though very text heavy. It is mostly a role-playing game with action elements. There was a ton of dialogue at one point, but it was all through speech bubbles, which was a little obnoxious because it was written in like old-timey English speak. So like everyone was speaking Shakespearean dialogue in speech bubbles, and I was like, oh, this isn't fun to read. But overall, the game was, in fact, an enjoyable time. I think the game holds up if you like Square games, but also if you're not in the mood for a traditional RPG. So if you don't want to really sit down for something grindy, like maybe a Final Fantasy game, try out Vagrant Story. I had a good time. It kind of reminds me a bit of the Kingdom Hearts games, except the combat system in that is a bit more action heavy, but I don't know, it just kind of gave me that vibe. Next week, Seth, you can play Mecha Robot Golf for the Super Nintendo.
That sounds fun. Unlike all the other games you've given me.
Speaking of which...
So Zach gave me Fifth Element for the PlayStation 1. Fun fact, I've never actually watched Fifth Element.
Such a good movie. You should really watch it.
Maybe you should give me the movie to watch instead of the game to play. So I've never actually watched Fifth Element. The game Fifth Element is based on that movie. So I have no nostalgia for the game nor the movie, nor do I really know what's going on in the movie nor the game. And it's been too long and I have been afraid to ask for so long. Now, in the game, you play as Corbin, and you must break into the Nucleo Lab to find the cellular reconstruction laboratory and reactivate Lilu's materialization using a DNA key. And I only know that you have to do that because the game says so in a block of text in the beginning of it. Fifth Element is a third-person action game where you, as I said, play as Corbin in the beginning, who is a dude with a gun. I don't know much about him, except that he has a gun. You eventually in the game, not that I played far enough, you do eventually play as Lilu as well, who I believe is the main character of Fifth Element. She's at least the one that has the multi-pass and holds that up. That's all I know.
She's played by
movie.
Mia Jovovich, who's in all
Yes.
the Resident Evil movies, and Corbin is played by Bruce Willis.
Now, the game is a third-person action game on the PlayStation 1, which has a lot of issues, such as the ever-present fog and people shooting at you from out of that fog. If I watch the movie, I might actually know what's going on, but all I know is that there are random people shooting at me, and I don't know why they're shooting at me, and I have to shoot them back, but I can't see them. So if I actually knew what was going on by watching the movie, maybe it would be a fun romp for someone who is nostalgic. But for me, it's just a kind of a clunky-looking PS1 action game. So, in its defense, it looks a lot like Shadows of the Empire, which I love, and that's for the N64. But I have fond memories of Star Wars, so I can deal with it, but not of Fifth Element. So, if you love Fifth Element and you're yelling at me right now through your car or whatever you're listening this through, yeah, maybe you should check out the game. But if not, you can maybe pass. I don't know if it necessarily holds up though, as any blocky PlayStation 1 action game holds up in today's day and age. It's not like unplayable, it's just there are better action games. Next week, Zach, in spirit of this episode we just did, you can play Spider-Man and Venom Maximum Carnage for the Sega Genesis.
Great. I will. Well, with that, thank you for listening to our episode. If you have any memories of playing Jumpstart games or Knowledge Adventure games, send us an email to classicgamingbrothers@gmail.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Classic Gaming Brothers, Twitch, Classic Gaming Brothers, Instagram, Classic Gaming Brothers, X, CG Brothers Pod, and Blue Sky CG Brothers Pod. We're also available wherever podcasts can be found, be it iHeartRadio or Podbean or iTunes. That being said, Seth, is there anything I'm forgetting?
Don't play games like my brother.
And don't play games like my brother.
I've been Seth.
And I've been Zach.
And we've been the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's
right.
That's right.